Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Missing Frames. This is the podcast where we watch all the movies we should have seen by this point in our lives. I'm your host, Shawn Eastridge. We're hanging out on the Nerd Party Network, a collection of podcasts dedicated to all things entertainment. Check us out at thenerdparty.com. You can follow us at Join Nerd Party on Twitter, and make sure to like the Facebook page, The Nerd Party, as well as following us on Instagram at The Nerd Party. And I am delighted. This is a superstar episode. We've got so many Nerd Party members here today. We've got none other than Mr. John Mills. John, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. We've come back here. It's a little bit dry though. It's really weird.
You think so?
It's a little dusty in here. I don't know. Does that have to do with what we're going to be talking about? I don't know.
It very well could, and I think we need a dust, spice, sand expert to help us. I don't know what I'm talking about. We got Tristan Riddell here to discuss David Lynch's Dune. And Tristan, you're the Dune guy. You're the Dune guy.
I'm the Dune guy. My license plate says Mahdi.
Does it really?
It really does. Yeah, my license plate says Mahdi.
I mean, I called you the Dune guy, but you were ready. You were committed. I wasn't ready for that.
I've had the same license plate since 16. Yeah.
So we're watching David Lynch's, to be specific, David Lynch's Dune, which is a film that I have never seen. I am a giant David Lynch fan. This is a film that I've been putting off for a long time because first and foremost, David Lynch probably would prefer that I don't watch it. But for the longest time, I hadn't read the book Dune. I wanted to read that before I saw it. And really, I wanted the Denis Villeneuve movie to be my first adaptation. And then I would come back and do this. So I have seen that film, and now I'm ready. I have the 4K version of Dune. I'm ready to watch it. But I want to know, I mean, you said, Tristan, you were 16. You've had this license plate since you were 16. Mm-hmm. I want to know, as the Dune guy, when did you discover Dune? How did you discover it? Was it love at first read? Tell me everything.
Well, actually, my first experience, my first exposure to Dune, the Dune story, was the 1984 David Lynch version. Like I didn't read the book first. I didn't even really know about it because my parents loved this movie. My parents loved Dune, and so they showed it to me at a young age, and we would watch it all the time. And when I watched, I can't remember how old I was. I think I was maybe 10. And I was just enamored by it. I thought it was amazing. Like, I just loved how ethereal it was. Like, I just the sleeper has awakened. You know, I remember being in elementary school and putting my hand on a piece of paper, and like while people were making turkeys, I was outlining my hand and putting underneath the sleeper has awakened, or the sleeper must awaken. And
did you get Duned first or Star Wars first?
Oh, I Star Wars first. Yeah.
Okay.
Like I was younger. I watched Star Wars before I saw Dune.
Gotcha.
But okay. I was obsessed ever since. And then when I got older, I read the novel, and I was just like, oh my God, this is even crazier. This is even better than the 1984 version. And then when the year 2000 happened and the sci-fi version came out, that's when it became a part of my bones. That's when I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm shaping my personality around Paul Atreides. And it was crazy. And I just became obsessed.
You love it. You've read the books. Like, have you kept up? I know there are like,
I know
there's like a main series, and then there's like spin-off series that aren't even written.
Well, yeah, Frank Herbert wrote 5 original novels, and obviously I've read those. And then his son and Brian Anderson, I believe it's Brian Anderson.
No, it's Kevin Anderson. Brian
Thank
Herbert.
you.
Let's just call him Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Anderson.
And they wrote sequel novels because Herbert died before he could finish his entire plan, and so they wrote it based off of his outlines. And then they went back and did a prequel series, and which not a lot of people like. I like them. They're very cinematic. They're nowhere near as in-depth or as ethereal or as philosophical as Frank Herbert's works. And you know what? They don't need to be. they're a completely different animal. But I really enjoy them. And then they do a lot of kind of like side quills, whatever you want to say. Like there's like Sisterhood of Dune, there's Paul of Dune, there's stuff about the Harkonnen family. Like there's so many novels. I can't keep up. I couldn't keep up. But I read the originals and the prequels, and I had to stop there. Like there was one time I was reading them a little too quickly and too short of a time span, and I was also doing the audiobooks, and I had to calm down because every once in a while something would pop up, and they're like, people would say like oh, people were worried about climate change, and they say like, oh, I wonder what, how it's going to affect the human race. And I was like, we need to expand as the human race. We need to expand our consciousness. We must go out into the stars and make sure that humanity survives and just, I was like, whew, I gotta tone it down just a little bit. I gotta read some Dr. Seuss or something.
Too much spice. John, are you a fan of the Dune series? How did you get introduced to Dune?
I saw this on probably basic cable-ish, or maybe even just a straight. I
did not realize that this
whatever.
movie was both of your introductions to Dune. How crazy!
And the thing is, I saw the movie, and it was like my reaction to it when I was younger was like, yeah, that's pretty interesting, but whatever. But like it sort of like stuck with me, and then it stuck with me enough that when I got to college, I was like, I should read Dune. First book I ever read that had a glossary in the back, and like where I was like, wait, what does that word mean again? Flip, 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 flip. Oh, right, okay, beats its wings, got it. Flip, flip, flip. That sort of thing. And I like fell in love with the book. I've never read anything more than the first book. I stopped at the first book, not because I was like, I shall read nothing else of Dune, but because in the 1990s, Lucas Books owned my wallet. And so I read all of those old EU books that are now pointless because they don't tie into anything anymore. And so basically,
and the
Disney
and especially the joy that they brought you was especially pointless. I just want you to remember
no, absolutely. Disney came along and just said, hey, John, remember what you spent a decade doing? Yeah, it doesn't count anymore. And it's like, oh, great.
It's so crazy that Disney came in, burned your books, and erased your memories too. That's insane.
Oh, no, I hold on to my memories, but I remember Bob Iger standing on my front lawn, pouring lighter fluid on the books and laughing maniacally. It's very, very true.
Legacy, my ass.
Wait, hold on a second. You have that memory too? Oh my God, where are my Star Wars books? So would you call yourself a fan, John?
Yeah, no, I loved the book, and then I came back to this, and I saw it again, and this is. I'm curious what your reaction is going to be, because the most recent time before this that I watched it was I was out and about in San Diego, and I was out on the town after the day one of the conference is over or whatever, and my colleague and I go out and we're like, let's sit down and have a drink somewhere, and we sat down in this bar, and Dune was playing, and we sat down and we're like, oh man, that's a weird choice to have on there. And then we just got quiet, and we're just like sitting there watching it. And, he's sitting there, he's like, man, it really is watchable, isn't it? I was like, yeah, it kind of is. Like, it was bizarre. It was such a weird sort of thing, but it's a David Lynch movie, so that makes sense.
Now, John, if you ever do go back to the novels, you should at least read the next two.
Right.
It makes a really good trilogy. The first three make a really good trilogy.
Okay. My good friend Richie, who's been on the show, he highly recommended. Is it Dune Messiah?
It's Dune Messiah and then Children of Dune.
Okay, he. I don't know if this is a consensus. It probably isn't, because I don't hear many people talking about the sequels. But he was of the opinion that Dune Messiah might be better than Dune, and I was like, well, okay, I'll at least give that a shot. It's funny. What were you gonna say? How do you feel about that, Tristan?
Oh no, I don't know if I would go that far, but Dune Messiah is a beautiful character study of Paul Atreides about what happens once you get power, and it's what's that Che Guevara quote? Like it's a lot easier to blow up trains than make sure that they run on time. I don't want to give anything away. But yeah, it's a very good dissection of what happens when somebody gets that kind of power, because you don't like in the novel and in the movie, like they say like, oh yeah, Padishah Emperor Shaddam IV is the emperor of the known universe, like we're all like, oh yeah, that's big, like and when like we're looking at Star Wars and Palpatine is the emperor of the galaxy, you're like, oh yeah, no, that sounds impressive. Dune Messiah makes you understand how massive that actually is and what that actually means, and how he needed to once he gets the throne, how he needs to keep it and what he has to do in order to keep it. And so that's all I'm going to say about Dune Messiah.
Gotcha. So I am definitely interested in reading that. Like I said, I tried to read Dune. I think I was either in college or right out of college, and I got about a third of the way through and was just like, this is too much. I put it down and I didn't pick it back up for a decade practically. What's weird is I always I was a big, and still am a big Ender's Game fan, and for some reason I always equated the two. I think because they're big sprawling sci-fi sagas, very, very different, but like in terms of the longevity of the series and the reputations
definitely
they have,
I can see that.
Yeah, I think I kind of skewed off and went, well, I'm going to do Ender's Game, and in a very similar fashion, I read the first one and for a long time didn't read any of the sequels. I actually haven't read most of those sequels, but had a very similar reaction where it was kind of like, well, there's the singular first book, which everyone talks about, and no one really talks about the sequels. But I really loved Speaker for the Dead. I'm going off on an Ender's Game tangent, but I think because I kind of had skewed off into those books, I never really picked up Dune until the Denis Villeneuve movie started to get some traction, some buzz, and I was like, well, I should probably get around to actually reading this thing. And right around the same time these announcements were being made about his involvement and about the adaptation and just the absurd casting choices every day, it felt like something insane was happening with that. I was really, really getting into David Lynch. And a lot of that was thanks to John, who sat me down essentially and made me watch Twin Peaks and Fire Walk with me. And then we talked through The Return together, and with Joey, we reviewed the entire season.
Joey still hates that season, just for the record.
Which is incredible. But I think I, as a massive David Lynch fan, knew that this was not favored by him, that it was a tough production, that he disowned the movie. And that made me even more curious to watch it. But I kind of made a promise to myself. I said, well, you know what? The adaptation I want to see first is I love Denis Villeneuve. I am really excited to see what he does with it. So I'm just going to put David Lynch's Dune on the back burner. It's one of, I haven't seen Dune. I haven't seen Inland Empire. So those are the only two David Lynch movies I haven't seen. And I've been really, really looking forward to it. As far as how I feel about Dune, like I said, I finally read it just a couple years ago and I enjoyed it. I think I'm as somebody who loves Ender's Game, which is such a character study, I struggled with the dense description and depth of Dune, as many people do. I kind of enjoyed it and admired it for its scope and just the incredible world building and just, again, how impressive it is. And I felt a little bit left cold as far as the characters and things like that. Like, it was hard to connect for me personally with Paul.
There's a lot of people who feel that way. Like there's a lot of people who feel like and actually that was a big criticism of Villeneuve's movie, where they're just like, oh, I don't really feel like we can connect with the character so much. And I'm like,
which is so funny.
Yeah, that's kind of
the book.
That's kind of the book, where you don't like, you really just you're aware of these characters. They define the characters, and then you see them go through this. You see them go through, like the fall of a regime, and then you see them in survival mode. There's not much you can relate to, like there's not much that there's oftentimes when Paul, like especially before he becomes Muad'Dib, he's kind of a void, like he's kind of that spoiled kid that has power thrust upon him, and then he finally realizes like what it means to lead, and he's just kind of a vessel for the story. Not so right. It's not like the story revolves around Paul revolves around the story.
Exactly.
And that's why Villeneuve's movie is that way, because that's what the source material is.
That's how I felt about the movie. I was like, when people complain about that, I said, well, that's kind of Dune. Like, that's what you get what you pay for. And I think if I return to Dune, and I do intend to reread it at some point, because I realized I'd forgotten completely what happens in the book, because after watching Villeneuve's adaptation, I was like, well, that's actually the moment. It's, obviously they split the book into 2 parts, and part 2's coming, I don't know when, but in the next year or so. But I don't remember anything after the point where they end part 1. And I was like, oh no, wait a second. Why don't I remember anything? But I think it's a great point. It's something, and also I think we're the struggle to adapt Dune, and I'm very curious to see, because I know there's extensive voiceover in David Lynch's version. But one of the things is there's so much inner monologue. Like, the characters are kind of emotionless and cold on the surface, but like there's a whole bunch, particularly Jessica, there's a lot going on underneath the surface, but she's very calm, collected on the outside.
John, can we spoil that for him?
No. Okay.
I'm excited because,
but I will interject just real quick, because your struggle with, like, you talked about how you read like a third of Dune and you were like, this just isn't working for me. I had friends make fun of me. I did not actually read Fellowship of the Ring until like my 3rd attempt to get through it, because I would get to Tom Bombadil and I was like, I don't like this. And then I got to Tom Bombadil again and I'm like, man, that's still boring. And then the 3rd time I'm like, man, I was talking with my friend Mike and I was like, I don't know, man, that I remember that Bombadil part. He goes, it makes sense later. He goes, you can skip it if you want to. Just power through it. Just get through it. It's going to be worth it. And so I powered through. And then, of course, I just consumed everything after Bombadil, and then like got the point at the end and everything. But I think that I say all that just to say that, like, I think it's more common than people realize that you approach these sort of works with gigantic reputations. And it's like, it's intimidating, because if it doesn't click right away, you're like, wait, is there something? I don't want to be the guy that doesn't get it, like,
yeah. On top of that, I think Dune has a real disadvantage in this day and age, and even like in 1984, of Star Wars basically copying a lot of it. And now, Dune,
Frank Herbert hated George Lucas.
Yeah, I mean, Dune comes out now, and people who aren't familiar with the source material at all, they watch it and they're like, well, isn't this kind of Star Wars? It's in the desert, and there's this kid who is the chosen one, quote unquote, and they have Jedi mind tricks where they get people to do things for them. Like, you can totally see, I can't blame them. It's extremely frustrating, but Dune almost has that working against it as well, where Star Wars is just the rip-roaring, like, extremely exciting, and Dune is more meticulous. It's slow-paced and it's thoughtful, and really about creating this incredible world. And like you said, Tristan, you kind of, the characters occupy the world, but like, it's not so much about the story as it is about the grandness of the whole enterprise. Right. And I think, John, Lord of the Rings is a great point, because as somebody who adores those films, I started the Fellowship of the Ring and got, I think, right around Tom Bombadil, and was thinking very similarly to you, like, what is this? Where is this going? And then I saw the film, and it just, like, it was like, oh my God, now I can go and I can understand the story. In a way, I'm a visual learner, and I think seeing adaptations of Dune will probably make it easier for me to go back and reread it and give it some context. Because I'm lazy and I don't want to use my imagination. I want somebody else to tell me what it looks like.
I haven't seen Villeneuve's version. I have read the book. I can't wait to get your read on the casting of David Lynch's Dune.
Well, this is Kyle MacLachlan's first movie, right?
Is it his? Yeah, I don't think it's his first, because he doesn't have an introducing credit.
No, he was in Blue Velvet.
No, Blue Velvet's after this.
Is it really?
Yeah, Blue Velvet's 87.
The film stars Kyle MacLachlan in his film debut.
Really?
Oh,
I didn't think it was introducing. No, I didn't know that. Huh.
So
that is
his
crazy.
First movie. I know Patrick Stewart's in it.
Blue Velvet's 86.
I think...
I was off by a year. Sue me.
I think what I'm so curious about is, I I'm sure David Lynch had a lot of trouble making the movie, and I'm sure it very personally like pains him to think about the experience. My question is it really that bad? Does it deserve that kind of, I disown this, I don't want anything to do with it? Or is it more of a the only thing I can think of is Alien 3, like, you know, the not the whatever you call it, the work print, the special edition
work print.
I know David Fincher has said, I disown this, I don't want anything to do with it. And even though I don't love either version of that film, I think the work print has more of maybe what Fincher's intentions were. And there's just a part of me that wonders, it's like, does this film really deserve that hatred and disdain? And also, you know, Lynch has made some things teetering on the edge of quote unquote mainstream. Elephant Man,
Mulholland Drive. No, I'm just kidding. I'm completely kidding. No, I'm totally kidding. Mulholland Drive is borderline like X-rated movie
Elephant Man.
movie.
I'd say Elephant Man is probably
Elephant Man
film, besides this one.
Yeah, Straight Story is certainly
Straight
more
Story is the one. Straight Story is the one, because that's just
I mean, there's a part of me that's like, you know, this comes in the wake of David Lynch turning down Return of the Jedi. You know, he was the runner-up to direct that film, and
it
there is a part
on
of
which
me,
version of the story you listen to.
So there is let's just say there's a version of the story in which David Lynch was the runner-up to direct Return of the Jedi. And this movie coming out the year after, it just, to me, the fact that Lynch was so adamantly, I don't want to do Star Wars, but this has piqued my interest, and just seeing him with a budget like that, trying to take command of an epic production I'm so curious about what the end product is.
I can straight up say with full confidence that if David Lynch had wound up working for George Lucas would have wound up killing David Lynch.
Yeah, I was going to say that, like,
straight up shooting him in the back of the skull while he's trying to set up a shot.
No, Lynch would have been fired within like the first month of filming.
Pre-production. He probably would have been fired during pre-production.
I think that's the thing, is that like Return of the Jedi, Lucas wanted a worker. And he wanted a coverage director so that he could make the film and editing.
Yeah.
Lynch is not that person. Lynch, like Return of the Jedi would have been a Lynch film, not a Lucas film, if he did it.
Well, Dune proves that. Dune, basically, because of his experiences on Dune, where the production took over, the producers said, we're taking it back. And he said he was so furious about it that he kind of, it shaped in a good way. I mean, without Dune, I don't think we get Blue Velvet, like maybe eventually, but I think the negative experience on Dune made David Lynch very particular about the kinds of movies he wanted to make.
It definitely pushes him down a very specific path after this.
But that said, it's like he's never done anything like this again. Like, really, like, Twin Peaks was a surprise hit, certainly not conventional by any means. And like, there's not really anything else. Even the Straight Story, a G-rated Disney film directed by David Lynch, is kind of, it is accessible and certainly family friendly and a straight story. But like,
I really want you to watch Inland Empire now. I really want to see what you have to say.
Maybe we'll come back and do that one later. But I'm so curious, simply because as a David Lynch fan, as somebody who knows the film's reputation and is not enamored with the book, but certainly I admire it, and I admire the this world and these characters, and I'm just so curious how you could possibly fit this whole story into a single film and have it be remotely.
If I read the book first, if I read the book first, I think I would have had a much different view of Dune 1984, because like I have so much nostalgia towards it. I can't, it's so hard for me to be objective, because like my parents loved it, and so I loved it. And then I read the book, which I love, and so I look back on the movie fondly because it introduced me to the book. But objectively, it's very different. The style, like what you read on the page and what you see on the screen, is very wildly different.
Yeah, I may have made an outrageous comment right there about George Lucas, but I'm pretty sure that Frank Herbert would have killed David Lynch had they been working together.
Well, that's a ringing endorsement. I'm excited.
Hey, there are plenty of authors who don't like adaptations of their work. So,
Very, very true. Very true. So, well, I think, typically this is the point where I say, guess the plot, but I already know the plot.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't as well as I thought I did. I certainly don't know David Lynch's version of Dune. So I will say I'm excited. I have no clue what I'm going to think about it, but I am certainly thrilled to watch it and discuss it with you gentlemen when we return. So everybody stay tuned. We will be back.
Now available to own on video cassette.
And we're back. John, Tristan, I am going to need some moral support. I'm going to need whatever spiritual help you can give me. What's a good Dune reference to throw out here? What can I reference as far as spiritual?
Do you need us to help you get through your own Gom Jabbar?
Yes, this is my Gom Jabbar. This episode is my Gom Jabbar. It's certainly a weirding way that I need to. That's weirding way is how I describe the movie.
You've taken the water of life and you need to change it.
There is an easy reaction to have to this movie, which is the reaction I am trying to avoid giving into like completely. Because I think my immediate thought watching it was, what the hell is going on? Actually,
no,
that was one of them. I think my first thought was like, David Lynch should not have done this.
No, what you were thinking of, if you want to make it a Dune reference, while you were watching it, was you were hearing whispered in your head, "The tooth. Remember the tooth."
That I think that will never leave me. That will haunt me.
I'm Jürgen Prochnow, the most terrifying father in film history.
Many people have tried to adapt Dune. They've tried and failed. They've tried and died.
But like, I don't necessarily want to take the David Lynch approach and completely like dismiss the film, because there are things about it, production design like that,
Toto's score is pretty solid.
Yeah.
Toto's score is pretty solid.
That's really good.
Costuming is fun.
Costuming is great. It is a movie that I think, given the amount of resources at everyone's disposal, though it was, I think, a really huge budget for the time. Wasn't it something like one of the most expensive films of that era at 40 million?
Yes,
don't know
that
what the
40.
record,
if it was 40 million, that's more than they spent on Return of the Jedi, which was like 33 million in production costs or something. So yeah, I mean, if true, then yeah, that's kind of obscene. But I mean, this is the trap, right? This is the post Star Wars trap. Everybody knew Star Wars was inspired by Dune, and God love them, the De Laurentiis Entertainment Group. They always went for broke, and they shot for the stars, and they couldn't resist it. This was their shot at Star Wars, and it's like, and they even get the director that was briefly had half a conversation with George Lucas to direct one of his Star Wars movies. So
and yeah. I am as people who listen to this podcast who have ever heard me talk about David Lynch know, I adore the man. I adore him as a human being. I adore his films. And that said, there's a spark of inspiration to the choice of having him direct this, but he is so restrained, it feels like, by the need to honor a source material that it kind of feels.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well,
Tristan, I'll let you field this one.
Tristan,
go ahead.
Walk me through this, please.
Well, I mean, I think as someone, I mean, we've all read the book and we've all seen the movie. And to say that he feels restrained to the source material, when you look at a movie that brings in the weirding module, I feel like that's not showing restraint to the source material.
That's fair. I guess what I'm trying to say is Lynch is locked into somebody else's vision, if that makes sense. And Lynch is a filmmaker who has his own singular vision. And given his way, I feel like if he had not been restrained by this is the story you have to honor, you have to tell, he may have felt more relaxed, more free. For whatever reason, he could not do the movie he wanted to do, or so he felt, whether it was during the production, which I believe he was stressed out during it. Maybe just he felt like he was having to compromise and he couldn't quite achieve what he'd wanted, or whatever it is. There is a feeling to me of him kind of having to play by somebody else's rules and feeling like, oh no, this is not what I wanted.
Yes, I definitely think that's part of it. I think that by this point, I just think Lynch's talents don't lend themselves to something like this. And that doesn't mean that he's a bad director. It just means, sometimes people, it's just not like, I don't expect to see, Richard Linklater take on, the second Batman movie in this new series. Right. And I don't think that Lynch was ever really going to be up to this task. He's the small, focused, experimental, weird stuff. And that's fine. That's a great place to be. But he was never the right choice for this material, ever. I don't think there was ever any timeline where David Lynch was the guy that should have directed this.
I think that's what I'm saying. And it's not like I think there are like shortcomings with Dune, and we were talking about this with the Villeneuve movie, like shortcomings that people have where they say, oh, I'm not really connected to the characters. What's the story? What's at stake? And you kind of say, well, that's the book. Like that's the source material. So there were issues watching this movie where I was like, well, I don't this and that. And having to remind myself, well, this is inherent to Dune. Like this is the story itself. Like this is not something that Lynch, like it was not Lynch's doing, or it wasn't like, and I didn't realize he'd written the screenplay too, which is crazy. Yeah. But it is fascinating that he took that on as well, that role as a screenwriter, as a director. Like he really, really embraced it. And what's so frustrating is he is so against the film, or has so dismissed it and doesn't talk about it, that I don't know. I don't know if either of you have heard anything, because I'd love to know about it, but I have not heard him talk about why Dune versus Return of the Jedi. Did he feel like there was more wriggle room? Did he sense that Lucas was kind of that?
No, the whole legend that has sprung up around David Lynch with Return of the Jedi is pretty much legend. Like he was a name on a list, right? Because when Lucas couldn't hire Spielberg, he had to look around, and they had Lynch actually has since told the story, many years later, and who knows how much of it is real or whatever, that he actually sat down and as far as it got was the first lunch meeting, and that somebody
there's a great video on YouTube that everyone should watch. Look up David Lynch, Return of the Jedi. It's him telling the story.
That's it.
Of meeting with George Lucas. And it's like, and then he's telling me about something called a Wookiee. And I've got this headache. And this headache is really, really turning into a migraine now. Yeah. And he's just like, he's describing the meeting. But it's fascinating to me, because Dune is certainly less mainstream, and certainly... not to say Star Wars isn't spiritual, but there's something about Dune that is very homed in on these like religious aspects, the idea of the savior. Like, what does it mean? Like, can you create that yourself? Is it a self-fulfilling prophecy? Like how, like these really kind of interesting political, ideological things that Star Wars doesn't really touch on. Like, no offense to Star Wars. Star Wars is very interested in like black and white, surface level, at least the original trilogy. It doesn't delve too much into the details. It's kind of focused on the surface level, where Dune kind of delves beneath the surface. And I can only wonder if Lynch kind of looked at Star Wars and said, no, and I can see a world in which like I'm really just a surrogate for George's vision, whereas with Dune he felt a little bit more like that maybe that I want to know what he connected to about the material and what he felt he could bring to it. Because this movie, like I said, there is fascinating stuff in this. Like, Tristan, you're talking about watching it as a kid and falling in love with it. I completely get that. Like, that this is something that like, not to say like, oh, I wish I'd seen it when I was a kid, because then maybe like, but I can see the appeal, like the practical effects, the visual style. It is a unique film, and it's a dark film. It's not like overtly violent, but it's like there's some weird, gross imagery.
The barren stuff is I usually fast forward the barren stuff.
That is the stuff when I was a kid that were like, I Baron Harkonnen's face, I was like, oh, and they're like popping, and like he's got the oil coming. I'm like,
well, when he kills the one guy, and like I don't know what he does, like
pulls out his heart plug.
Oh, it's heart plug. Okay, so the blood starts flowing. That felt very like David Lynch was in his element. Ironically enough, just like the guy rubbing the blood all over this person's face and trying to kiss him, and like,
John, you said that David Lynch, his niche is weird and experimental, and to be fair to David Lynch and to Dune and De Laurentiis, Dune can be weird and experimental. I feel like it could have been weird and experimental. So I feel like the choice of Lynch, I feel, makes sense. I'm not saying that it was the right decision. I'm not saying that it was a slam dunk and Lynch just missed it, but I completely understand where that's coming from, because like when you look at, like when you try to think about like where Lynch inserted himself, and I think about the navigator scenes where the navigator's floating around and like the lasers or the beam of light is coming out of his nose, and it's like he's showing each individual planet and whatnot. And then I think about like the Water of Life scenes where Paul is having a vision, and then like you see the hand open up, and then like it's a dreamscape behind him. Like you see those kind of things. You're like, oh, that's hardcore David Lynch. And you look at the color palette and some of the editing decisions, you're just like, this is very much a Lynch film, and it goes with the source material. Now, not everything, but I just wanted to kind of chime in, like jumping off of what you said, Sean. I wanted to chime in and kind of defend that decision just a little bit.
I mean, that's completely fair, and probably the way I should have stated it is that Lynch doesn't scale up. Like he's intimately weird.
Yes. That is a very important and accurate distinction, because if you look at what he's done with Inland Empire, like when he discovered the joy of digital tape, when he's like, I can just film and film and film and film and film, and I don't have to change out the cartridge, and I don't have to wait. I don't even have to light or if I don't want to, it just, and so there was actually, I saw an interview with Laura Dern about Inland Empire, and there was an actor who was on set, and she was talking with him. And all of a sudden a producer comes by and says, okay, all right, I need a little person, I need a mailbox, and I need some cotton candy. And the guy turns to him and is like, that's not in the script. And Laura Dern just says, welcome to the David Lynch experience. Because like with Inland Empire, he just made it up every single day. He wrote the night before and then gave him pages that day, and they crafted the movie as they were making it.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. That freedom is not with a production like Dune, with $40 million, with a beloved source material. There is no wiggle room for that stuff. There is space for it. Like, I think David Lynch's being given the role of director is an inspired choice, especially considering like up to this point, I mean, Eraserhead is a singular film, and Elephant Man proved he had, I guess, the ability to work within more of a mainstream capacity, even though it's not necessarily a mainstream movie.
but it's also adaptation because the play had been around by that point.
So there is like realistically, like I can see somebody saying, all right, like Eraserhead is like this guy is nuts, but like has a distinctive vision. But Elephant Man, he can hone that in. He can kind of rein it in. I mean, and make something a little bit more mainstream and quote unquote sensible or elegant. And Dune like certainly could benefit from both those visions. I think it's just there is a real sense of production scale probably getting to him. The realization that he had to fit within a certain box and mold probably rubbed him the wrong way once he had started doing it.
See, the thing is, we're all dancing around the fact that this movie opens up the same way essentially that Zardoz does. The legendary Sean Connery movie that has a floating head on a black screen describing all of the world building for you. And then you flash forward to Princess Irulan, not too long later. And it's like, wait, he couldn't have possibly done this on purpose. But also this is the thing is on this rewatch, every single time I rewatch it, which is when you find out my rating is going to be baffling how many times I've rewatched this. But like the opening of her like fading out and coming back in is just continually like, this is the world as it is. Oh, hey, hold on. One more thing. I'm not going to let you go yet. And it's like, it's this clunky, like I honestly can only imagine, back then people walking into the theater, they finally made Dune. I'm so excited to see this movie and sit down in the movie theater. And that opens up and I have that cold pit feeling, like when you're really excited for a movie and you sit down, you suddenly realize what's coming and you're like, oh no. Oh no.
Oh, hey, whoa. That's one of the best parts of the movie. I don't know what you're talking about.
Apparently I disagree.
That I friggin' love like the No, Arrakis. Then it is the year 10,191. Like that's so, man, come on, Virginia Madsen, just like that voice that she puts on, the tonality of it, the in and out, like kind of hazy feel, like who is she talking to, or is she talking to the audience, is she talking to, we don't know. And then just like, and then when she, like the music starts to build and build, is like a man who will deliver them to true freedom, and then she just kind of drops her voice, Dune, and then Toto's sword just rises up. Come on, I'm getting chills just describing it.
No,
nonsense. I mean, I think the Fellowship of the Ring perfected this opening, like, let's stick the audience into this brand new world. But part of it, I think it could have really benefited from some visual support versus just her on screen staring and talking and explaining, because that felt very much like, we all know David Lynch hates explanation. There's a part of me that felt like every scene, every voiceover, every bit where somebody redefines, like, here's what Arrakis is, here's what its relationship is to I can just see these moments and the opening narration as things added in post to clarify for an audience, and Lynch just being like, I hate this, because Dune is a book that makes no apologies for being dense and confusing. Like, it is like, you are going with this, you need to accept it. And I can see Lynch being like, yes, of course, this is going to be great. So every time they add an explanation as to like they stop the story to basically explain, here's why this is.
You guys really need to see the extended cut if you think this is bad.
I have seen no, here's the funny thing is I've seen the extended cut and I like it more than this cut. I do.
You are freaking you are off your rocker if you think the extended cut is better than this. It's like, especially if you're making fun of the exposition at the beginning.
Listen, I saw it once on a bootleg VHS 23 years ago. My memory is that I must have liked it. So don't you dare come at me with that.
No. You need to watch things in a cut because it's all exposition. It is all exposition.
But in terms of the voiceover stuff, what's maddening about the voiceover stuff is that is that there are actual scenes where somebody could have just turned to the character next to them and found some way to give voice to these things and have dialogue, but instead it's in their head.
Or you don't say anything. Like there are scenes like where they're literally describing subtext. Like, could he be the one? Like, but you're like, it's in the context of people looking at Paul in awe, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he does something amazing, and somebody thinks, maybe he could be the I can't even what is it?
Kwisatz Haderach.
Kwisatz Haderach.
See, that's the thing though, is that like the extended edition. I know we're not reviewing the extended edition, but the extended edition,
but why not?
Ramps that up to 11, where like the scene where Duncan comes in for the first time, and Paul sees Duncan. And he just goes, he's like, Duncan. He's like, hey, Paul. And they just like each other. And then they talk about, like how they're friends. And then, Duncan says like, oh yeah, I'm going to Arrakis. But like in the extended edition, it's like, Duncan, Idaho. You have this voiceover where it's like, Duncan, Idaho is the Atreides swordmaster and good friends with Paul.
Oh, that
and then they have the scene.
Okay, see, I'm not even joking. I don't remember that. I might need to reevaluate my memory here.
Oh, you mean like I said? Oh, okay, yeah.
Hey, listen, man. All I'm saying is I actually knew a guy who went to a press screening for this. Cause I worked for a newspaper for a very brief time. And the guy was like, oh, yeah, I went to the press screening for that. I was like, oh, really? He goes, they handed out a booklet that like explained. He was like, you looked at this book and you were like, what? And like it was just apparently this, like, you always get like a press packet when you go, sort of thing. And he was like, this thing was like a book, a literal book, like explaining Duncan Idaho's like whole past and like how he like died and was brought back and like the therapy they use and stuff like that. He's like, what does this have to do with the movie?
This is also the real struggle of Dune and adapting Dune, and why I can't, like, I think Lynch gave it a pretty solid go. Like, this is a tough book to adapt. It is, it is so reliant on the histories and the politics and all these things. And the story is like maybe second or third tier to the ideas presented. Like there is, I'm watching it and as somebody who, again, is relatively familiar with the story, who has read the book but only remembers the first half of the book, I am watching this film from the context of, like, does it invite a general audience member in? And it struggles between over-explaining itself because it's fearful that the audience won't get it, but also like it struggles with the fact that it's a pretty, Tristan, you're going to be able to explain this better as a big fan of the book, because I don't want to sound condescending. I know this is beloved in the world over, but like for me, Dune is not compelling in a sense that I am engaged in this story or characters. I'm kind of I'm in all of the world, but the story leaves me feeling cold and distant. So when I watch this and I'm like, I'm not that interested in the characters or what's happening, I also say to myself, well, that's kind of how I felt when I read the book. So Lynch is certainly giving it a good go, but I wonder if there is just this major disconnect because this story in general is not necessarily a story. It's more about kind of the elements that make up this world.
It's so weird to me because you're like, well, like as someone who's read the book and liked it, I didn't really like the characters, the plot, the story, the setting, or the writing, but no, it's a good book.
He did like the font face.
I did like the font face. Right. Yeah. I like the book cover. No, I enjoy the book because I think it's such an all-encompassing vision. But for sure, why I don't like I'm not bowled over by it in the same way I'm bowled over by something like Lord of the Rings or Ender's Game or Harry Potter, is because like I don't connect with the characters. It doesn't feel like, one, I don't get a good sense of stakes at like emotionally what's at stake in terms of like good versus evil. There's
like the fruits of the devil.
Yes, exactly. There's specific pronunciations that Frank Herbert prefers, but I
like
think
Fedaykin,
like
Fedaykin. Yeah.
You kind of get set up as like this is an epic tale of like a major struggle, but even with the book, I never felt a sense of like, well, what's at stake? They're cutting off spice flow. What does that mean for the? We're like focused on this particular group of people, and this is
only they said he who controls the spice controls the universe. Only they said that more than once.
It's a 5-star movie if they said it.
But this is all to say, like I don't know that like Villeneuve did a pretty great job, and I think David Lynch gave it his best go, but there is a real strong sense of the first half of the film takes a lot of time to explain, where it was an hour into the movie before House Harkonnen invades, and I think, not to spoil it, but in the latest version of the movie,
I haven't seen it.
The latest adaptation, which is a part 1 of 2, the timing is practically the same, except in David Lynch's movie, they're covering the entire book. And I remember thinking like, wait a second, how is this going to work? And what it is the first half is very, very slow and plotting. And then it's like somebody elbowed Lynch and was like, you have about 200 or so pages to get through. And he's like, oh, great. And the second half of the movie is like, and then this happened, and he fell in love, and then this happens, and there's a big battle, and the end. But also,
like
that
book
I felt
2,
the same way reading the book.
Well, no, like in the book, like the book is cut up into 3 parts, like book 1, book 2, book 3. And in Lynch's Dune, book 2 is practically non-existent. Like we get almost no story with Alia. We get there's no Leto II. There's no romance between Chaney and Paul. It's just like, oh yeah, they hooked up, and and there's no wooing of the Fremen people. There's no learning their ways. There's no becoming their Messiah. It's just he was their Messiah. Like even in the Lynch version, they have like immediately when Jessica like just puts Stilgar in a chokehold, because apparently that's all you needed to do was just put him in a chokehold, and Stilgar's like, your water will mingle with ours. Here, we will call you Usul, Moadib. Yes, you will become our leader because your mother put me in a chokehold. You're like, oh my god, like okay.
It's true. The Freeman, like there's no sense of, they're like literally he's like, wow, your skills in battle are unparalleled, and it's like, chokehold, really? And that then it becomes a montage of just going through beats versus earning this with like careful character development and things like that. And again, I feel like that's in a way the source material does have. I remember there is a time jump in Dune the book, which threw me off, which is like, all right, now Dune, I almost called Paul is the character Dune, the main character Dune.
It's like when Jihad fell off the tower, and
but that's basically like it certainly disoriented me while reading it too. So it's in the same way Villeneuve's adaptation, I'm like, well, I have these problems with it, but those are also problems I had with the book. I see version as certainly very inferior and struggling and constrained by the limitations of the year it was made. But like there's a sense of like, well, they're trying, and there's certainly a passion on the behalf of the cast and the people behind the scenes, if not necessarily David Lynch, to try something different and special, which is why it feels too easy to just be like, oh, this is rough. It is, but it's also like fascinating.
I thought Kyle MacLachlan did a phenomenal job, especially for his first film, which is amazing to think that he's leading this movie. He's leading this sci-fi epic, and it's his first movie. And I think he does a great job. Like, I think he's probably the most sympathetic Paul I've ever seen.
Yeah, I like him a lot. I think I think the cast is pretty great. Although I think Duke Atreides is certain, like, they're characters that like are so prevalent, maybe because of the actors who portray them in Villeneuve. Like, you have Javier Bardem and Josh Brolin and Oscar Isaac, and then you have these guys who are kind of like, oh yeah, just sort of forgettable. I don't think about them, but I do love the what's his name, the Baron. I think, as disgusting as he is, that actor whose name escapes me, is it Kenneth McMillan?
Yeah, I think so. He's one of those actors where it's like every time he's on there, it's like, oh yeah, that guy, and you always love that.
He's
guy.
in a David Lynch movie. He's not necessarily in Dune. He's in the David Lynch version of the movie, and every time when he took flight, I lost it. Like, every time he flies around a room, like when he survives the assassination attempt and is screaming, "I'm alive!" and he's floating around, or when it inexplicably cuts to a scene where he is just flying around the room and cackling, those were the moments I desperately wanted more of, because I just wanted it to be wacky and insane.
That was always so confusing to me, because I feel like David Lynch's Dune has had this ripple effect with so many aspects, because if you look at the Baron in 1984, and then you look at the Baron in 2000, and then you look at the Baron in 2021, they all float ridiculously high. Like, they basically fly. And in the book, it's just a suspensor field so he can walk, because he's so friggin' fat.
Yeah.
So this is certainly, like, Lynch has brought things to this material that has stayed with it through adaptation. So it's certainly influential.
Yes. And that's the thing, is this is where I always come back to it, right? And I said this earlier, is it's an incredibly rewatchable movie, even though I consider it a failure. Like, it's a rewatchable failure. It's the type of movie you watch, and it's fascinating because it's an exercise of, it's almost like a touchstone where you can go back to it and say, okay, I understand what went wrong here and what should have happened. It's even though I'm not a filmmaker, obviously, and stuff like that, like, you understand the beats. And I think that the David Lynch that's in there, that's trying to claw its way out from this production, is what makes it has like a gravitic pull to bring you back to it. I also got to give Toto a lot of credit, because their score is great. I love the music in this film. Like,
it does a lot of the heavy lifting.
Oh my gosh, does it ever. And Tristan is sick of hearing me point out the fact that if you listen to the main theme from Scrooged, which came out in 1989, Danny Elfman's score, listen to the main Dune theme and then Scrooged, and you'll say, huh, no kidding. But yeah, no, I think Toto's music is great. I think Kyle MacLachlan works. I think that Baron Harkonnen is incredibly wild. Like, that definitely stuck with me as a kid, seeing that. It was like, whoa, this is crazy.
And the movie does look amazing. Wonky special effect, like the worm writing stuff. Again, the movie is caught in a realm of, like, is this intentionally hokey? Because there is, like, when he's writing the worm and the electric guitar comes in, and it's the best thing ever, but also just ridiculous. I'm not joking when I say this movie needed more of that sense of fun. Like, I think there is a struggle with self-seriousness versus, like,
get that. I think I could understand that, like, this, because there is no sense of fun. Like, like,
true.
I wish.
And I'm not saying that as in
you say that.
Like, I once saw I just recently saw a review for the Batman that said the performances are intense and well acted, but be prepared to see a Batman who never smiles. This is not for kids and super dour. And I'm like, yeah, like it's a modern Batman film, but it doesn't have to be happy. Just like not everything needs to be a Marvel movie. Now, that's not a criticism of what you said, Shawn, because I agree with you. Like it's not joyful. This is not a joyful movie, and it's not a joyful tale. It's not. But there could be more fun. I think that's the thing. When you looked at the advertisements for Villeneuve's Dune, I think it was genius because they really focused on the fun and action that they inserted into the movie. Like the Villeneuve's version is very much the spirit of Dune without being the letter of the law. And Villeneuve knew, if I'm going to have this much money and I want to make a second one, I can't do Blade Runner 2049 again. I have to do something that's bigger, bolder, and that will make you eat popcorn by the handful. And Lynch doesn't do that. Like, it's very serious. There's no joy. It's very dour. And this is the story that you're telling. This is the story he wanted to tell. And I mean, in the book, there's not much joy, but I get a lot of joy from it, if that makes sense, if you'll allow me that, because there's certain moments like the guitar riff, like with Virginia Madsen saying Dune at the beginning, like super, like Dune, super serious. And then like when Paul says, Stilgar, is there a worm sign? It's like, oh, so there is worm sign the likes of which God has never seen. You know, like, that just makes me laugh. Or like when Patrick Stewart is holding the pug, he's like,
the pug. Okay. Pug is not in the book, right? There is no pug.
There's no pug in the book.
Okay, I thought not, and but again, yes, Dune is not something that should be taken lightly. As far like, there's a gravitas to it, and it is the book itself.
That's a perfect word for it. There's a gravitas to it.
Yeah, it's serious, and I don't want to see the version of Dune that is a self-parody. Essentially, I think the problem is, if David Lynch is directing it, then that is the version I want to see, and I think that is something where in those moments, those lighter moments, whether it's the Baron floating around and cackling, or Sting, who is pretty fantastic given that he doesn't have much screen time, but man, that G-string is spectacular. And then almost everything he says is just like great, as far as like that, just like, you know, the guy who just wants to be a baddie and relishes it and wants to kill Paul. He's fantastic. I want more of that energy, and a lot of Dune in general is not that energy. Dune is very, very, to me, like plotting and kind of slow and
plans within plans.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you know, it's impressive. To me, a modern audience, I can still see struggling with the material, and what Villeneuve did, I think, is about as good as you're going to get when it comes to big crowd pleasing version of Dune. Because the book itself is not super crowd pleasing. Like, it doesn't have these big, like, there are great moments like the worms, like these battle sequences, but in general, it doesn't seem as interested in that as it is in plot machinations and political intrigue and religion and ideas. But John, what were you going to say?
Well, the thing that I think that every last one of us will always dance around is that, and I believe it's Alan Moore that said this, and I think it has merit, that sometimes things just don't work outside of their intended medium, right? We can debate Zack Snyder's Watchmen, which I think the director's cut is a good film, right? I thought that the theatrical cut was not, but the director's cut, I was like, okay, yeah, this is interesting, this goes. But still, the whole time you're watching it, you're thinking, yeah, but, because Moore wrote for the medium, and Herbert wasn't writing there thinking, this is basically a I'm writing a spec job for a film adaptation. He was writing, Tolkien wasn't writing a film. That's why that took forever and a day to like get up on screen properly. It's just these people aren't sitting down creating these things for the film medium, and film has a different set of rules. And I think that what it is honestly, and I understand why Herbert got so mad at Lucas, because the best possible type of adaptation you were ever going to get of Dune was of something that was inspired by, but not directly drawn from. And I still haven't seen Villeneuve's version, but that I consider it kind of
What is your excuse? Why haven't you
seen it? We talked
it?
about this before. You're going to give me hell for not having seen the...
Well, no, I think I agree with you. I think, and Harlan Ellison, I was watching like the behind the scenes stuff on the Blu-ray, but he was saying, he basically was like, this movie fails. No, he doesn't say this fail. Like he was very like just blunt about it. Like, but essentially what he said is that he's like, there are books that should just stay books. There are, that's essentially what well, exactly. Like there are things that are meant to be like Watchmen, and just they were designed for their medium to be appreciated as that particular art form. And but of course, like Dune is ripe for adaptation because there is a built-in fan base, there is a larger than life world and ideas that like Dune is exciting as a concept to me. It's more exciting as a concept than the actual material is.
I know we'll never get this because Villeneuve's was successful, and I'm not lamenting that. But I feel like at least the Dune trilogy, the first three, would be fantastic today as an Apple TV Plus series, a la Foundation. I feel like if it was given that treatment, you really, really could flesh out everything. And really, like if it had that kind of money, you could really, like write home about it.
Well, yeah, and I think keeping it with Watchmen. I still haven't seen the Watchmen series that came out that Lindelof was tied to. But
it's great.
It's good.
And that's the whole thing, right? Is like you're freed from a lot of the pressures in this, content-driven era, because it's like we just got to get stuff out there. And so there's, I would argue, more freedom for a creator who gets the job, like a David Lynch type figure who comes in to adapt Dune and is given, okay, you got 6 streaming episodes. Okay, that's going to work a lot better, because
in a post Game of Thrones world, it's harder to make the argument that a film is the best outlet for this kind of material.
Sure.
I think now, as somebody who prefers film to television, I understand the concept of like Dune the movie versus Dune the TV show. Even if television is, which I agree, I think there are undeniable strengths that Game of Thrones proved you can do it, and you don't lose really the production value. You actually give yourself space to tell the story. But I do understand the appeal beyond financially of like the idea of a Dune movie versus a TV show.
Now a couple of notes that I think are, because we're rounding third, as we love to say, but a couple of notes to throw out there is that yes, the Virginia Madsen intro was a concession, when they went back and they did reshoots to condense certain things. But I didn't know this until this moment, that Lynch had actually originally scripted this out over 2 films. And they said, no, 1.
Huh.
And so, And number 2, this is where I have to start challenging legends and timelines and stories. Because apparently De Laurentiis hired Lynch for this in 1981. So this timing here of when was he speaking to whom is really interesting, because that would have been around the time Lucas was looking. So this really does turn into competing productions. And is it possible that De Laurentiis did that? It's as simple as De Laurentiis just offered more and then said, yeah, we'll give you creative control. And probably why Lynch winds up feeling so betrayed is that he didn't get what they promised, because he didn't have final cut of the movie. And that's probably why he disavows it.
Well, Lynch also was very clear that he loved working with De Laurentiis, like, and De Laurentiis' daughter. Like, I was just watching an interview where he was like, you know, this is to him, to Lynch, this is his great failure. Like, it's a blight on his filmography, but he was very clear. He was like, I love them. They were very supportive. Like, I really enjoy. And De Laurentiis produce Blue Velvet, or was that somebody else?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I do know that De Laurentiis also produced that terrible Jeff Bridges version of King Kong, which was hideously bad.
It was. So this was De Laurentiis agreed to finance and produce the film. So it's like Dune is, to me, less fascinating as an adaptation of Dune and more fascinating as a piece of David Lynch's filmography and what it did. It's his first color film, and it also was something that was such a sore spot for him that it essentially reoriented him and ensured the rest of his career. Because Blue Velvet is a major course correction, but also supported by the same guy who produced this.
Interesting side note, you were right. The budget was $40 million. Does anybody care to take a crack without looking it up as to what the gross box office receipts were in 1984 for it?
32.
I think it was something like half.
30.9. It literally was $0.1 million away, whatever that turns. What is that, $10 or something? But it was really close to $40 million. How crazy is that?
I don't, honestly, and again, I don't mean to knock Dune and Tristan. I want to, like, as far as like personally the appeal of Dune for you, like as somebody who really embraces this world, I don't see, and we won't know, and we might not know until part 2 comes out. But as far as the success of Dune, they kind of backed themselves into a corner where like they were like, well, it's part 1, we're going to have to do a part 2. And in the COVID world where we'll never really know what the box office would have been for Dune Part 1, I really don't think... I think it's the same thing as Blade Runner 2049, where the movie releases and it doesn't make money. And it's like, well, wait, I thought people wanted a Blade Runner sequel. And you're like, yeah, but look at what happened with Blade Runner. That is a cold dystopian sci-fi film with like kind of an emotional detachment. And Blade Runner 2049 is a near 3-hour movie with the same vibe. Of course, it's not going to do gangbusters at the box office. And I don't think Dune has the appeal, especially as unfair as it is in a post-Star Wars world, to connect with an audience in that way. And I wonder if Dune is just like, for general audiences, like, when you say, even if Dune had been like successful in all aspects, I still see problems with it being as much of a mainstream success. Is that fair to say, Tristan? Am I being unfair?
I don't think you're being unfair, but I do disagree. Okay. I think they marketed it very, very well and accurately. They didn't do that with Blade Runner 2049. And I feel like the casting in Dune really sold it, and really that really brought a lot of buzz, because when you have that many recognizable people who are all at the top of their game, every single actor in there that has a leading part is at the top of their game right now. Like from Jessica to the Duke to Paul to Duncan, like everybody there is like, nope, yep, they're all cranking out hits left and right, and everybody talks about them, everybody loves them. And Denis Villeneuve is a director that everybody wants to work with, and I really do feel like they marketed it well. There was a lot of buzz. Like, a lot of people came to me and said, are you going to see Dune? Dune looks exciting. No one came to me and said Blade Runner 2049 was like, no one said like, are you going to see Blade Runner 2049? Like, it was just it's so even though I love both pictures and I like Blade Runner 2049 more than Denis Villeneuve's Dune, I think Dune 2021 has way more mass appeal than 2049.
I agree with that. But I also, I mean, what something that keeps leaving my mind. This is nominated for Best Picture. Not to say that's the end all be all, because we know films that don't necessarily deserve it are nominated, and it's not necessarily based on quality. But that said, Dune getting a Best Picture nomination is a really big deal in the grand scheme of things. So
especially
it's
being a
sci-fi
film.
And what's especially interesting is that you're not talking about this movie that we all watched, which is really interesting.
Well, no, he was talking about the heart of the story being is it possibly a critical and financial success?
I know, but I wanted my laugh line, so leave me alone, good sir.
But we do need to wrap up, though. We do need to wrap up.
We do. Well, I just want to say something that there's been no easy way to organically fit into this conversation. The random love scene flashback of Jessica and Duke Atreides.
That is the most nonsensical thing in the world.
The greatest is my favorite scene in the film. And
I'm not
what would have made it better?
I'm saying it's nonsensical.
What would have made it better if you had that guitar riff behind it?
Please! Oh
They're
my god! But is there? We've bashed on the film a fair bit, and maybe not a fair bit, but favorite, since we've talked a lot about things that don't work, favorite moments, things that really do work. Kyle MacLachlan, Tristan, what else about this film still, despite its flaws, makes it work for you?
I love the ending. I even though it's not like the book at all, I friggin' love the ending. Like, I just when they walk in and they're all standing there and like Alia's sitting down, and like she even says like, "For how can this be? For he is the Kwisatz Haderach." And then like when he kills Sting, and you can see the knife through his mouth.
That's pretty
great.
And
then like Paul is just super pissed at him, and just like, you're like, Rotna! And he splits his chest open and the stone underneath him, and they say like, "Oh, Muad'Dib no longer needs the weirding module." It's just like I everything, and then all of a sudden it starts raining, and I love it. I just absolutely love it. And then boom, credits.
Interesting side note is there was a moment in that, the moment there where he goes, "There is a Harkonnen among you." Apparently what got cut was Thufir under, commands for, because he's milking a cat for his antidote. It is tasked with,
you can milk anything with nipples, John.
That has been settled throughout history. But he's going to go over and he's going to kill Paul, and he winds up killing himself instead. And that's what sets Paul off to go, "There's a Harkonnen among you." And like, I think that would have actually worked better. I will say there's a pleasing number of people with bald heads in this movie, because as somebody with one, I was like, I felt seen. I did like the production design. I did like, I like when they do stuff where like the guy speaking for the navigator has the microphone and you hear him speaking the other language and the microphone's translating for him, instead of that Star Trek garbage that we get with the universal translator where their lips move at the same thing. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. But I love that type of stuff. I actually, all the way back to childhood, absolutely love the design of the navigators, because it is so freaking weird. And since I've seen Eraserhead in the years since, I can look at that navigator and say, yeah, that's definitely the guy that did Eraserhead did this movie. Yeah. Because I can look at that thing and I'm like, oh yeah, no, I can definitely see that. So
if I could change one thing about the navigators, it would be giving them blue eyes.
Yes.
That would have been so easy to do. It always pissed me off that Lynch didn't do that.
Yeah. No, I get that.
So ambitious, and I think as somebody who is a major David Lynch fan, it's nice to finally see this and to look at it in the context of where he was in his career and how this kind of, again, brought him back to his roots in a way. But there's a part of me that, as sad as it is to have like confirmation that like, maybe David Lynch is just not the right person for a major blockbuster, I'm glad this exists, that he got a stab at that genre in general, even if it was just not the right fit for him. And I agree with a lot of what you guys have said. I think production design, there's some, like, I wanted the movie to be more bonkers, but there's some bonkers stuff in it. And that certainly makes it worth the while. It certainly makes it worth checking out again. Even though I wouldn't say I enjoyed it. It's certainly a film that I can see myself revisiting down the line.
Right.
And maybe appreciating even more with subsequent viewings. Although it's tough with Villeneuve's movie, there's a tough, like, well, which version do I need to go back to this or that kind of thing? But I don't know. I think there's certainly some value here. So this has been very, very enjoyable. Certainly well worth the experience. Well worth talking about it. Well worth seeing Tristan get mad at John. Really, any reason for anybody to get mad at John is always
it's true.
Justification.
I invited on myself. I know this. Yeah.
So final ratings. God, I want to do either floating barons or just pugs. Take your pick. One or the other. How many would you give Dune? Scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. John, we'll start with you.
Well, in the tradition of you curb stomping The Dark Knight Rises and then giving it 2 stars, I have curb stomped Dune, but recognizing that on average, I watch this movie about once every other year. I can't. I swear to God, if anybody ever saw the Mel Gibson movie with Julia Roberts and Patrick Stewart, oddly enough, Conspiracy Theory, where he keeps buying copies of Catcher in the Rye and he doesn't know why, and he insists he's never read it before. Like, that's me with this movie. Like, I come back and I'm like, maybe it'll be great this time. Oh, nope, still what it is.
That's a fantastic scene that you described. Where like Mel Gibson really emotes during that scene. I like that scene.
Yes, it is. This is 2.5 stars because I can't stop watching it and I hate myself for it. So 2.5, 2.5 barons floating in the sky.
Tristan, how about you?
Oh, I give it an unashamed 3.5. This is, I think there's a lot of things wrong with it, but it's the love is there and there's so many good things about it. It just sometimes gets up its own ass, and I think that's the problem. And if I did it out of pure enjoyment, I would give it 4 stars. But I think a 1.5 stars is enough a knock. I know people are probably thinking I'm crazy. I know, Shawn, you're thinking I'm crazy right now. But I said at the beginning of this podcast that there's no way I could rate it fairly because I have so much nostalgia baked in, and I recognize that.
I don't think that at all. I'm actually impressed with the balance. Like, I was expecting you to be like, you know what? I don't care. 5 stars. I love it so much. So I'm,
who is he? Brad? Come on now.
Yeah. I'm going to have to go with 2. I'm not quite curb stomping this one, but it's certainly my least favorite David Lynch movie, but also part of that is because it is and it isn't a David Lynch movie. It's like a fascinating artifact, a necessary artifact as far as his filmography goes, but I think the first half is too slow, and I think then the problems I have with the source material are present as well. But Sting in a G-string. That's what we should have been giving this. Just how many G-strings, how many Sting's G-strings do you give it? So I'll give it 2 with the caveat of I certainly would like to watch it again at some point.
I think it looks more like Lightspeed underwear, but
Oh my gosh, yeah, it is Lightspeed briefs. Absolutely.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to chat Dune, and please tell the good people listening where they can find you on the network and elsewhere out there on the internet. Tristan, we'll start with you.
Well, you can find me on Twitter and Letterboxd at The Insane Robin. And also, if you want to find some of my other shows, which I'm very proud of, go to thenerdparty.com/host. Find me, Tristan Riddell. Click the link and you'll find everything of what I do.
Same for me. Go to thenerdparty.com/hosts. You'll find me, and my username out there is Kessel Junkie. So if you find me and you want to connect or read my reviews on Letterboxd, cool.
And I'm at Shawn Dorman on Twitter. I am also Shawn Dorman 05 on Letterboxd. Find me there. Yell at me there. yell at me anywhere. If you see me in the street, don't not coherently, just yell at me. And I'll know. But thank you guys again. Absolute pleasure as always. And thank you everyone for listening. We will see you at the movies.